Okay, now we will see how to create a entry to do entry. For that, just type something. Okay, ball, get ball at 5. I'm clicking save, and that particular to do is coming here, right? You are able to see this here, and then this form is empty. Okay, now how to implement this? Okay, so you have to, what are the things to be done? You have to get the data from the form. Okay, get the data from the form, and then while you click the save button, you have to send a HTTP post request to the backend to update the to do. So the backend is updated. Now you have to fetch the data, get the data, get all to dos, get all the to dos, and update this this component. This component has to be updated. Okay, so how to make this happen? First, get data from the form. Okay, so anything you do, right, first be clear on what has to be done. This is what has to be done. Get the data from the form, send a HTTP post request, and then get the data again and update this component. Okay, so now how we are going to do this? So get the data from the form, right? So in the form, right, in the form, it's an input element, correct? And in this there will be on change attribute. In the on change attribute you can have a function, and through this function, right, in this function you can have an element, you can have an argument as e. This e dot target, dot value, right, it will give you the value in this form. And e dot target dot name, right, that will give the value of the name attribute of the form. For example, the name you can give anything. Name is equal to title. Okay, that will give the name. So from e dot target dot value you can get the value, and this is basically in the form component, right? This is one form component, this is a to do component. In the form component you can get this value and update the state variable. Okay, and from the state variable you can send a HTTP post method. Okay, so this can be done. Okay, we'll see how it is done. And then basically you have to invoke this component again. When this component is invoked again, it is going to fetch the data and render it. Okay, so this is the two things you have to do. Okay, let's see how this can be done. Okay, okay. As I told you, the first thing is basically you have to go to the form component. In the form component, the first thing you have to see is in the input ID, in the on change, that is for both the area, right? I have two functions. Both the functions, what I am doing, e dot target dot value, I get the value, right? I set a state variable, title and description, right? I'm using this function, I'm setting the state variable. Okay, after setting the state variable, I'm clicking the save button. And when I click the save button, right, I'm calling this function handle save. Okay, in the handle save, okay, let's not worry about this. Okay, code, I will explain this code while doing edit. We are sending the post method. Okay, because this to do form, right, we haven't passed the set to do. Okay, but initially, right, in the app component you are calling the to do form. This set to do is initially null. Okay, this is updated only in the edit to do function. Okay, this will come later. For now, this s to do, right, data, that is null. Okay, so in the form component this s to do data is null, so it will not, the control will not come here, control will come here, and here you are sending the post method. So simple thing is you are getting a data on change attribute, there is a function. You are updating a state variable, okay, and from the state variable you are formatting the data. This is the state variable, right? From the variable you are getting the data and updating and sending a post request. In the post request I am updating the data, I'm sending the data. Okay, in the response what I have to do? I have to get the data. Okay, so to get the data, what I'm doing is in the parent component, right, in the apps, in the argument I passed on function. I'm calling that function because the get data, the get to do, right, this component has to be invoked. If this component is invoked, the data will be retrieved. Okay, so for now till now what you have done, we have collected the data and send a post request. After sending the post request, this component has to be re-rendered. Okay, then only the data will be shown here. Okay, so for that I am calling a get to do function, and in this I am updating a state variable. A state variable is updated. If it is false, I am updating. If it is true, I am updating as false. If it is false, I am updating as true. I am just toggling the state variable. When the state variable is updated, right, the component will re-render. Now the component gets re-rendered. When the component gets re-rendered, this component will be invoked, correct? Okay, I'm just passing that R data. So when the component gets invoked again, right, what will happen? The props is changed, correct? That the R data is one of the props, correct here. This props is changed. We have set it false to true and true to false. So this is changed. When this is changed, this use effect will be called. So the prop is changed. The dependency is props. In the use effect, I'm getting the data. In the get data, I get the data, and update the state variable. When the state variable is updated, this component will render again. When the component render again, all this thing will be rendered again. Okay, so I can see the changes here. So long story short, what you are doing? Basically, we are getting the data from the form using the onChange attribute, and then we are collecting the data in the state variable. When I click save button, I am sending the post request. After sending the post request, I have to basically render this component again. So after the post request, I am calling this function. This is a to do form, right? In this to do form only you send the post request, and I am calling this function again. In this function, I am setting a state variable so that the whole component re-renders. So that the get to do also is re-renders. In the get to do, I get all the data and I update this component. Okay. So this is what happens in the post.